Hello there. It seems that the real fun is starting now. After the resignation of British Prime Minister Liz Truss, the question of her successor arises, and an old friend has good prospects. He was her predecessor and could now be her successor. After Liz Truss resigned as Prime Minister after just 6 weeks in office, Boris Johnson is positioning himself to move back to 10 Downing Street. This is reported by the British newspapers Times and Telegraph. In his resignation speech, Johnson had already used a reference to the Roman dictator Lucius Lucius Quinctius Cincinnatus, who returned to his plough after completing his public service, but later slipped back into the role of the Roman autocrat. And according to the Telegraph, Johnson seems to have already set the course for his return. Because in order to get into the second round of voting for the successor to Truss, he needs the votes of at least 100 Conservative MPs in the British House of Commons. And I talked about the election process in the morning already. And according to The Guardian, he already has between 38 and 50 votes. I hear about more than 60 now. Tim Montgomery, founder of the Conservative Home website, predicts up to 140 votes for the ex-PM. In contrast to what is probably his closest competitor, Rishi Sunak, Johnson has the advantage that he is extremely popular with a party base. And according to the Telegraph, Johnson is said to have offered Sunak to work together. It's an interesting offer, especially since Sunak's resignation as Chancellor of the Exchequer in the summer led to the collapse of Johnson's government. The collaboration between Johnson and Sunak could be successful, though, in a vote like this. Through their cooperation, they could offer the Tories a prime minister who has done successful campaign work and, in Rishi Sunak, a deputy who has the confidence of the currently weakened market. The piquant thing about this constellation is, though, if the decision on the next prime minister lays solely in the hands of the Tory MPs, Sunak would probably have a better chance of getting the job. Ultimately, however, the Conservative base determines the next resident of 10 Downing Street. And according to recent surveys, their opinion of the most suitable candidate is clear. According to a survey by the polling institute YouGov, 32% of the Tory members prefer Boris Johnson to succeed Liz Truss. Only 23% want to see Sunak in office. The other candidates are far behind and play no role at the base. So everything boils down to the duel between Sunak and Johnson, always assuming that the former Prime Minister really takes the lead. Observers like Camilla Tomine from The Telegraph predict that Johnson will only dare to take this step if he is certain of his victory. Should Johnson compete and actually win, however, he has another problem. The Conservatives are divided. While right-wing MPs tend to support Boris Johnson, like arch-conservative Jacob Rees-Mogg, he posted a Boris or bust graphic on Twitter on Friday, but the moderate MPs are more behind Sunak. Johnson is not the one who can restore our party's reputation in the next 2 years, is what Tory MP Crispin Blunt told Sky News, and he supports Rishi Sunak. As the American portal Politico claims to have learned, some MPs are already organizing to prevent Johnson. The party will tear itself apart under Boris, comments an anonymous MP. And another adds, I will do everything to prevent Boris as Prime Minister. Appropriately, there should already be agreements in Westminster to prevent Johnson. Politico quotes anonymous sources from the ranks of the Conservatives, according to which party members are putting pressure on Sunak and Penny Mordaunt, who is also running. The goal of the whole thing is, if both come together with Johnson in the top 3 candidates for entry into Downing Street, the person with a worse result should withdraw the candidacy and publicly support the other. But even this tactic is not without its dangers for Johnson's opponents, because Sunak and Mordaunt are fighting for the votes of the moderate Tories. Johnson is unstoppable. That's what an anonymous opponent of the former Prime Minister told Politico. he will gather enough MPs behind him to move into the final round of voting. And by October 28th, at the latest, it will be clear who will succeed Liz Truss at 10 Downing Street. So far, only one thing is clear. Whoever is given responsibility for the fate of Great Britain must unite not only the country, but also the Conservative Party. And after the political chaos of recent months, that could be a real mammoth task, and I think with either candidate, an impossible task because of such a split party. I'll see you in my next video. I'll be back.